9 o'clock, May 8th, 2024, and we're calling the NID regular scheduled meeting to order. Will you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So roll call, please.
Division 1?
Here.
Division 2?
Here.
3? Here. Division 4?
Here.
Division 5?
Here. Okay, so now we're going to public comment for items that are not on the agenda. We have public comment.
Good morning. Don Conan from the southern end of the county. Actually, it's just a question. I don't know if you're going to cover this, but I was reading in the paper that the Yuba Canal might not be fixed until the end of summer, and I was just wondering if that was correct or...
That's on the agenda, and we have Brandon Sanders from PG&E here.
Okay.
And he will address that.
All right, thanks.
Any other public comment for items not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, that is closed. We're going to the consent agenda.
To accept the consent agenda.
I'll second.
We have public comment on the consent agenda. Any other public comment here? Nope. Okay. Roll call, please.
Division 2?
Aye.
Division 3?
Oh, aye.
Division 4?
Aye.
Division 1?
Yes.
Division 5?
Yes. So now we're getting into the workshop. We have Brandon Sanders here, who is from PG&E. Thank you, Brandon, for coming.
Sure.
Actually, yeah, that's a better mic. And this is a workshop. So how workshops... Looking at gallery, but that's not how you join the discussion. So workshop is that you can get up anytime, speak, as long as you're moving the discussion and the agenda along. So I just want to say, Brandon, thank you for being here. We want you here every meeting we have. We have an update like this. Is serious. I have a couple of questions that I think today it would be PG&E has basically fully assessed the problems. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
And that they're fully engaged to fix it?
Absolutely.
And that the reports from the construction site are more encouraging than they were 2 weeks ago, a month ago, 2 months?
Yeah, we've made steady progress. That's for certain. I do have, and thank you to your staff for providing me with a list of questions from the last meeting. That's very helpful. I feel much better prepared to speak to some of the items today compared to how I was situated last meeting. If at the discretion of the chair, I'm happy to share some of those updates.
Yeah, and I just want to commend you on the fact that you had to go to bat for us. Thank you.
Happy to do it.
You know, you stepped up and we appreciate that. So I know later today, I'm meeting a few hours with Pamela Grant, who's Congressman Kiley's representative here, and she wanted an up-to-date update.
Great, and I do believe we have a meeting scheduled with the Congressman's office for Thursday as well. We had committed to meeting with them, I believe, twice monthly.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, floor is yours.
Sure.
Do you want to go through the questions?
Yeah, I think I would maybe just go through the different components of the work as opposed to reading each one verbatim, and then if we wanted to go further into detail, I can reference back to my notes here, if that works.
We're going to share those on the screen.
And I do believe that they have been posted to the NID website at this point as well, so folks can access them there. So great, we'll go ahead and jump into it. So again, Brandon Sanders, Sierra Division Government Affairs. serving as a liaison to local governments, city, county, and in this case, water purveyors and water agencies. I would definitely applaud Jennifer and her tenacity in pursuing the release of some of these details. She's been a good partner, very collaborative, and we certainly appreciate her partnership. So we'll start, I'll just kind of go down the questions I have here. So work is...
Just so you know, sorry, they're also up on the screen.
Oh, okay, great. Oh,
Just-
okay.
So
Great, yeah, so those
You're looking
questions
at
will be up on the screen as well.
They work.
There we go, great.
Yeah.
We'll, I'm not gonna read these verbatim. I think, now that they're available for reference online, folks can, avail themselves of that. But just at the high level updates, we're still very confident in our June 18th date to restore partial flows through the conveyance facilities up there. There is detail, but essentially what we're looking at is restoring flows of approximately 400 cubic feet per second by that June 18th date. There were a number of questions about the South Yuba pipe, which is a piece of the larger sort of facility composition. And I do have an update. It was 240 feet of that 50-plus inch steel pipe that was destroyed in the landslide. The really good news is we thought that the lead time for procuring permanent repair material was going to be much longer than it ended up being. We had our logistics and materials folks able to source that pipe material far sooner than we originally expected. So that's a very positive development. And in coordination with NID's operational leads, it was determined that we're going to proceed with the permanent repair as opposed to a temporary fix to that approximately 240-foot section of pipe. So
that will save everyone about $2 million.
I do believe there is a substantial cost savings to both parties as a result of that. And so once we've completed the permanent repair to the South Yuba pipe, that will allow us to move an additional 200 cubic feet per second through the Spalding 2 powerhouse. So again, just trying to restore multiple avenues to convey water through that facility. Again, we procured the pipe far earlier than expected, so that's really positive development. And at this point, we're projecting repairs to the South Yuba pipe, which again is a component of the broader work, by August 1st, is what we're currently projecting. And that...
Finishing the repair by August 1st?
That is what I have in my notes here.
Now, end of July.
Our schedule reflects the completion date of the pipe repair of August 1st.
I was just gonna add that it significantly advanced the ability for PG&E to procure the pipe materials earlier than originally expected.
Right, that's really true.
It's kind of an obscure pipe size, so that we thought we were gonna be far more challenged than we ended up being securing that material.
So, that's really good news. I'm wondering about the balance of the pipe that is under PG&E's ownership and your maintenance responsibilities. Is that also vulnerable to the same kind of rock slide as in its placement? If we had another rock slide, I guess the question is, had another rock slide similar to what happened, is that pipe of such an age that it too would crush or whatever it is that happened to them?
Well, I think we've seen many, many instances over the years of land movements damaging the conveyance facilities coming out of Spalding, whether that be PG&E-owned facilities or NID-owned facilities. My understanding is it's going to be restored like for like. We're doing the rock scaling and removal uphill from that structure. That's going to greatly improve its resiliency to future land movements. I can't say that it's not possible it will happen again. I've not been there in person, but I've seen imagery, and it's a sheer cliff of granite. But we're gonna put everything back in such a way that it should remain in service reliably for future uses. Yeah.
I guess what I'm getting at is when you do this repair, are there other things you could do to strengthen the portion of the pipe that is under your care? Are there things you could do to strengthen the pipe?
Well, we will have to restore some of the foundations in the areas that are damaged, and of course, the entire run of pipe will be fully inspected and validated as, reliable for return to service prior to putting water back in it.
Removing the boulders from above.
Yes, that's also part of it, yeah. And
The entire South Yuba Canal, including the South Yuba pipe, is very vulnerable to any natural incident that will take it out, whether it be fire, landslide, rock falls, tree falls. There's typically some type of issue at some point in the winter on that portion of the system.
And we can't change the basic nature of that terrain.
Yeah, you know, that is correct. I think moving forward into the future, we need to look at some alternatives, any potential alternative to reduce risk, but the whole segment is at risk. I think our biggest risk is likely related to wildfire. There's a lot of elevated wood and plume, and that would require significant modification to that infrastructure, which costs a lot of money, but that's something that staff will be talking to you about when we start moving the capital program forward.
All right, so I'll continue working through some of the information that I have here to share. There was a question about, you know, the work schedule and the number of personnel on site. We do provide some detail here. As previously shared, the actual pit, if you will, beneath the facility can only fit, I believe, 5 to 7 personnel down in there at a time. But we have, again, a number of other folks. We have helicopter operations, we have engineering teams, safety teams, all of those types of folks. So there's dozens, if not more than 100 people working on the project actively. But in terms of people in the hole doing the work, the critical path work, that's a relatively small number of people just given the space constraints. There were a couple of questions about refill forecasts for some of the NID-owned reservoirs. The response I got back was that is really something we would need to lean on your team for in terms of modeling and projections to determine that.
But the South Yuba Canal would not be out of commission. It'll be primarily Powerhouse 1, the second horn.
Yes, I do believe that to be the case, yeah. And that we're going to be coordinating closely with your teams on when we take that outage to fully complete that repair on the second.
And you're getting an idea of fixing the first horn, how long that will take.
Absolutely.
What you need to perfect.
Yeah, it's going to allow us to be very targeted in terms of establishing the timeline and completing those repairs, because we'll have had the prior experience doing this.
Do you have a timeline yet for how long it will take?
I don't.
About 4 months for the repair of the second horn. About 4 months time period, give or take. They're going to do another outage after irrigation season is over, so the outage would start like end of October, beginning of November, and then go through likely February.
So 4 months to fix the second horn.
Roundabout, I think that's all in.
And yet if they're fixing the first one in 4 weeks.
They've been working.
But they've been working on it longer than that.
But they haven't been putting it together.
Well, I think it's the mobilization, it's the demolition, it's getting material in, and then some accommodation for being able to get staff in during periods of high snow.
So you haven't demoed it yet, the second one?
That I'm not sure about. I do know that the reasoning for doing the one horn was that we also had to repair the structural columns, and we couldn't do both horns and the structural work concurrently, so that's why we took this approach. So that we could complete the structural work, restore partial flows, and then, again, come back in the fall, take an outage, and finish the repair.
I'm seeing 6 weeks instead of 4 months, but that's all right.
Well, what staff's going to continue to work with PG&E, and we'll ask those questions. We do twice weekly phone calls with PG&E. We also have some scheduled questions. I don't think, we've been trying to really pin down these schedules and rerunning all the numbers, and we're starting to talk about refills, the second outage, and so we'll report back to the board at the next meeting.
Yeah, can they demo the second horn now?
No, it's my understanding because of the scaffolding that they can't, but I'm not exactly 100% on that. Kian, do you know?
I don't think that.
Well, and I think partial demo was done and then was probably stopped. They can't the scaffolding had to go up to fix the columns. Columns have to be fixed in order to ever return back to partial service. So they completed demo on the one horn and now are fixing on repairing that. I don't think that it's physically possible to go in and start work on the second horn at this point.
And we can, I can come back to the next meeting potentially with a further update on that piece.
We'll love you to come back next
Yeah,
week.
I'll be here until the water's flowing, and I'll be here.
We should get you a name placard.
Yeah, there we go. I might have one somewhere. Just a little bit more on the staffing piece, there was a question about, the different sort of work streams, if you will, and we do have separate teams working on the powerhouse repair, the pipe repair. So there are multiple work groups, if you will, leading that work. Again, still very confident in that June 18th date to restore partial flow into the system. That has not moved. We have provided NID staff with a timeline for each construction milestone. Some of that is governed under the confidentiality terms of our coordinated operating agreement, but your staff does have that information, and that's available to them to make their operational decisions as appropriate.
Let me interrupt for just a second.
Sure.
Jennifer, is the schedule that you and staff have been provided, is it sufficient, or do you need more information that you need from them that they've not yet been able to provide?
Regarding the schedule, no, the schedule, it's a solid, it's step-by-step schedule. Yeah, one of the challenges is that we get schedule updates all the time. You know, the day might shift back a day, back to where it was, just because of nuances of construction. But they've been on schedule. The schedule is sufficiently detailed. There's an overall schedule, and then there is a schedule for completion of each of the 4 main repairs, and identifies all of the critical paths for completion of work, who the project manager is, duration of time, and then when they provide updates, they show what work has been completed to date. So, yeah, I'm very comfortable with
I'm really
the level of
asking that
schedule.
because that was not something that was provided for early on.
Yeah, we had originally received a high-level schedule, which didn't enable us to have a high level of confidence in what was needed to be completed, but we have resolved that issue.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Great. Please.
We talked about June 18th and August 1st. The June 18th date is partial restoration of flows. That would be only down the drum canal, correct?
That is my understanding.
But you can spill back over, a little bit over back into the South Yuba Canal. We're estimating about 50 CFS.
But I'm confused about where that would enter the canal, above the break or?
No, below the break.
Below, okay, that's, I had trouble with that one too.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So once the partial return to service of the one horn comes in, they're gonna be able to flow 400 CFS through there. We base our calculations off of including some loss into the system. So we're showing 300 CFS going into Rollins and spilling 50 back over into the South Yuba Canal, which one then will go into Scotts Flat.
Thanks, Jennifer, for adding that.
Clarifying that, because that's, I still have a problem visualizing the plumbing when we talk all this stuff.
Yeah, it's a little complicated up there.
How much goes into Cascade for water treatment? For raw water?
Generally speaking, in the summer months, that entire 50 would go to Cascade, but given the situation we're in, we'll have to spill a little bit for the health of Deer Creek and also for the health of Scotts Flat as much as we can. We're going to continue running pumps until the full restoration of the South Yuba Canal is back to us.
Sure. How much does that cost us a day or week to run those pumps?
I'll have to get back to you on that. It really depends on which pump stations we're running. There are some that are diesel pumps, high horsepower, very expensive to run, somewhere around $1,000. But there are others that are low head, high volume, not quite as expensive, and they're just additional power costs. So, but I can get you some of those numbers for next week.
Maybe this is for Keene, but when do you perceive that the flows will be sufficient enough that we can power up our powerhouses and begin generating?
The 50 CFS will be enough to run the Deer Creek powerhouse as soon as it's in there. So, but the rest of the drum powerhouses aren't ours.
Oh, that's true, they're not ours. Yeah.
There should be sufficient flow at that point to run Dutch Flat number 2 in Chicago Park.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
There was a question about our confidence that the single horn could carry the amount of water we're projecting, and we have done past testing, and the equipment specifications indicate that that is something we are going to be able to do. And then, of course, we're going to test everything prior to fully returning it to service to validate the repairs were done correctly. There was a question about the collapse of the foundation, and I just wanted to clarify. So there were two columns that hold up basically the floor of the powerhouse, is how I understand it. So it wasn't, the powerhouse didn't collapse, it was the two columns, yeah. And one of those was completely destroyed, and then the second one was badly damaged, and as Jennifer alluded to, we have scaffold up, and repairs are going well on the structural stuff. There was a question about, and it appeared in local media, about some FERC inspections that occurred, and I want to be very clear, that was unrelated to this situation. That identified some superficial coating issues on some equipment that was not submerged in the tunnel. So those were two distinctly separate items. The cause, let's see. So again, one of the columns was completely destroyed and the other is severely damaged. We're requiring replacement of both. Work is occurring, as I shared previously, both on the structural work and the single horn. So that's happening in parallel path. There's some questions about inspections. We do perform our inspections in accordance with FERC and Division of the Safe Operation of Dams requirements. The inspections comply with all the regulatory requirements and are informed by operational conditions. And then
I read that, and I found that answer frustrating because it was more of a dodge than an actual answer. It said, oh, well, we do everything that's required of us. Well, great. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean every 25 years you look at it, or does that mean every 5 years? Or, what is that requirement?
Well,
that was what I was trying to get at.
Our identification of the issue was a result of those regular inspections. When we saw water where it shouldn't be, we dewatered the tunnel and further investigated to find the damaged column. So that was a direct result of an inspection.
But for our knowledge, and to Ricky's point, find out what are you required, how often?
How often, right.
And
that I do not know.
Yeah, because I know we do it, but.
Sure.
I think the issue is that when you have a failure of this magnitude, it's hard to understand how there wasn't any forewarning, that all of a sudden, whoa, we've got a major failure of this level. So I agree that it would be helpful to better understand what the systematic approach is to ongoing maintenance of a system that is so important to our district.
Understood. As with my comment on the last meeting, I can certainly carry that back. And seek some further clarity from the team and share what I can.
Because the other question that I asked that didn't seem to make it into this list was, again, about those columns. Again, when something is compromised, the structural integrity is compromised, there are some warnings. You see cracks, you see, whatever those warnings would be. It doesn't usually just go, all in one fell swoop unless there's a catastrophic event. And so what I'm trying to get at is how often, what is the schedule for those inspections? And then when you inspected it, what was seen? Was nothing seen? Maybe they didn't inspect it? I mean, I just cannot believe, that someone somewhere didn't see some hint that this was eroding to the point of potential collapse, which of course we know. So I'm just trying to get my head around what happened there. I mean, we know that it collapsed, but where was the
indicators?
Yeah, where were the indicators and why nobody saw it? And if they saw it, why was nothing done in advance of having this catastrophic crisis that is caused?
I'll carry the question back. I mean, I certainly understand the nature of your question. I don't have the answer today. But I can seek out some further detail on that.
So I'd like to add on to that. Maybe it isn't something you've already, maybe I'm a little late getting up to speed. Are we going to have a conversation on what is the agreement that's in place on cost sharing responsibilities for the South Yuba Canal, both pieces, Spalding 1, Spalding 2, and so on? Because I think that the public's going to be shocked when they find out that we're going to end up footing some of the bill. So I think that needs to be done in public if possible. I don't know what the agreement that is in place. And then to Ricky's point is, how do we as a water district make sure that this doesn't happen again. And I think the only way you do that is to be much more aware of the maintenance cycles and inspection cycles, than we probably have been.
Right, and they've got to share the information. It seems like they have to share what they found in their inspections. And maybe it's all kind of behind some FERC curtain that they can't, or our operating agreement doesn't allow it, but it seems common sense they should.
Yeah, so
That information should be shared.
I agree, good comments. The conversation related to any cost-sharing requirements underneath the coordinated operating agreement will be required to happen in public because it would require a budget amendment. Some of that conversation will likely also happen in closed session. And so once either party states that there's an extraordinary event that occurred and it isn't subject to cost sharing, we are then able to request several pieces of information. So there's a lot of work going on in the background on requests that we are making. And some of that information will have to be shared in closed session, but I do agree that, you know, the public has a right to know what that is and what the potential cost is. So let me work with Dustin and Andy McClure, and we'll figure out how best to package that up for the public and then for closed session.
Include in that, going forward, a more proactive part on our ability, PG&E allowing us in to verify what is being reported.
Yeah, that's currently isn't provided for in the coordinated operating agreement and would likely require some type of amendment to the agreement, which would be fairly substantial and difficult to accomplish. But we'll go through and take a look at it.
Well, it makes me wonder, so this is all around Spalding 1, well, so how's our Spalding 2 doing? I mean,
Yeah, I have a note on that, and so we are looking to coordinate the timing of the outage on Spalding 1 for the second horn repair. We're working on coordinating that with NID staff, but also we're looking to see if we can flow water through Spalding 2 to sort of augment water conveyance while Spalding 1 is taken offline in the winter for that additional repair. So
my point though is that, so we had Spalding 1 have this collapse. Do we know if Spalding 2, I mean, they're the same age, blah, 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 or do we know if Spalding 2 is in the same sort of precarious position as Spalding 1? And how do we get to know that, whether it is or isn't?
It went out last year.
Yeah, Spalding 2 has been offline related to the wicket gates issue.
Right.
And that is a separate repair that's addressed separately on the repair schedule of the whole separate project. As far as any foundational issues at Spalding 2, I haven't heard that there is any. I'm going to trust that PG&E would do what we've done. They're all offline, so they're probably doing a thorough look at everything right now, but we'll verify that.
And we NID will be able to see. Verify.
So I just want to make it clear, we have zero rights underneath the operating agreement to go verify anything. We can verify through requested documentation of anything we're required to pay for under the extraordinary event. Based off of the legal agreement, PG&E is required, as well as NID is required, to reasonably maintain and operate our respective systems to normal industry standards. And so when we start talking about, you know, that's where any issue comes into play, is if something wasn't operated to that standard. But this is kind of getting into the realms of things we're still working on and that we're going to have to report back. And a lot of that report back will be in closed session. But we currently, they have let us into the powerhouse. We have no legal authority to demand to be let into the powerhouse. Just like they have no legal authority to demand to be let into our powerhouse.
Right.
No, yes.
But since we're so intertwined, I
In
would
that facility,
suspect
right.
that we're going to, at least this board's direction would be that we have more access, more working agreement with PG&E.
I can convey that desire back to power generation leadership. It's not something I can speak to.
And I think, you know, one of the things that this speaks to, and Miranda's not going to be surprised by this by any means, but this is why over the years NID as well as PCWA have had these conversations about, is there a way where, or a world under which PG&E divests of that particular system? It is very difficult, and this is not to speak poorly as PG&E at all, but we have two different priorities, right? We're a water supply agency, and our first commitment is water supply. They are a power utility. Their first commitment is to power. And our system is commingled such to the extent that we're intermixed. We transfer water through each other's systems.
For 100 years.
Yes, for 100 years. So an ideal world, yes, it would be easier if NID controlled the whole watershed, and then we would be able to monitor the situation. That currently isn't the case. We have to operate within the confines of the legal agreements we have, but these are all, good conversations to continue to have.
So you're saying that you could get rid of a major headache?
We could. We'll buy it for $1.
That is way over. That is.
I think his head nodded. Should we record that?
Yes, sir.
No, we're just teasing. No, that's a very long conversation to have, and it would take a lot on behalf of NID to make the financial determination whether or not that would be even beneficial for our ratepayers.
So just to be clear, from my standpoint, I don't think PG&E is doing anything nefarious, right? My ask is, what's the maintenance schedule? What's the inspection schedule? And are we getting the reports and going through it and go, that's sufficient? Or are there major gaps that we think should be changed, and then we can negotiate? Personally, I don't think we need to put people in a tunnel. We can believe that they're doing the inspection if we have the report. I guess that's where I'm at, is, are we getting sufficient reports for maintenance and inspections?
No, we have requested them. We have not been yet provided them.
And that's the biggest concern.
Yeah, we're still working on that.
Now, what's the history of that scenario, right? Do we have any? Is that ongoing? I suspect not, and because our relationship with PG&E has been very, working together for a long time, so.
It's worked to a point.
Yeah, there's been a lot of back and forth going on with requests of information. So some of that we'll share within the closed session, but we are working on those requests.
I agree with Trevor that PG&E is not doing anything nefarious, but I still want to be in the tunnel.
That's not something I can commit to
Just because I.
this morning.
Cool tunnel.
Yeah. I personally am not a fan of confined spaces, so I'll pass, but.
I'm right there with
But I think what we're seeing here is this is, a good faith gesture to share some additional info based on our conversation on the 24th. I fully anticipate these conversations to continue off into the future. I think perhaps I'll leave it there and field any commentary or any additional questions that the board or staff would like me to carry back to my leadership for consideration and review. And I will say that those items that we are able to disclose per the terms of the COA are available on the NID website. And I want to thank Greg and Jennifer and the team for making that available to your customers so they at least have a bigger picture understanding of the different items that we're working on, so.
I tell your guys that this helps alleviate speculation and instills more confidence. And thank you for doing that.
Appreciate that. And I guess, in terms of safety, we're doing a lot of messaging around river safety. Obviously, there's the spill occurring, flows in the South Yuba are high, so anything NID can do to help us reinforce, like, hey, maybe find a lake for Memorial Day and avoid the river, I would certainly encourage people, especially small children, to stay out. So.
Yeah, for sure. We'll put something out there. The South Yuba River is extremely high and extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
Folks should stay away from it.
How many CFS?
We're going to be providing that information to UBANet. PIO is working on it.
How long is it projected to spill?
That I don't know. I think that information will be in the statements that Paul Moreno, our PIO, provide to UBANet and the union. They're actively working on that now with our hydrologists and all that stuff.
I was up there, I don't know, a few days ago, and the water at Lang's Crossing, was like nothing I've ever seen before. It was incredible. And do you have any idea what the CFS is that's running through that area?
It will be in the media piece that we're working on. I don't know, though. I'm sorry.
It's been released, it's on UNet now, and it's currently between 11 and 1,200 CFS, and they're predicting that it's gonna be between 100 and 3,000.
Thanks.
And the county is aware, County Emergency Services is
Right.
aware, all the associated fire departments are aware, so we have been working from that aspect too for any swift water rescue.
And we've placed signage at the various access points on our properties that are popular too, so.
And I was appreciated that PG&E had signage when I was there at that Langs Crossing area that said, stay out over here, don't go here, you know. But there was all this wonderful signage, truly, that was like, ooh,
I just,
going anywhere.
I just thought since I had the audience online and in the room, I would,
Yes.
you know, make that statement because
Yeah.
it's extremely dangerous.
Yeah, yeah.
So I have, two questions for Jen. One is, how does the flow that will, become available approximately June 18th, meet our community needs? Or we, you know, give us an update on the status of our water supply and how well positioned we'll be for the summer months.
We're gonna be looking really good. Chip did prepare a water supply update that we'll do, but just a sneak preview. This last round of storms essentially topped off Rollins and did a lot for Scotts Flat. Our water projections are much better than, we're beating our most conservative projections, which is awesome. So we are still looking at voluntary conservation only, and that is based off of the single horn coming back into service on June 18th. And then also, the repair of the South Yuba pipe by August 1st will be in good shape. We should be able to stay with voluntary conservation, with the exception of possibly having to rotate. Some people, we're not quite sure yet, we're thinking we might not have to. It really depends on how hot it gets, how much water people use. On the Tar and B canal, we're thinking maybe not the Tar canal. We're still working through some of those numbers, but that's more related to capacity issues in the DS canal, since we can't come off the Cascade.
Yeah, and just an observation, our ranch is on the Camp Far West Canal, and I noticed how much further down the canal is than its historical flows. So just an observation.
We're operating everything as tight as possible as well. Operations staff has been, we're ensuring we're meeting our commitments for water delivery, but we're also trying really hard to operate the canals very efficiently. We've received quite a few folks that have voluntarily decreased their water allotment for the year, which has been fantastic. And then every time there is a big storm event, we do stop water deliveries. So, and that's mainly not wanting the canals to overtop. So this last storm we got was really good.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah,
Really.
that's right.
If we get one more of those in June, we'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yep, rain dance.
So, one more question is, Brandon mentioned that PG&E is deferring to NID to do the modeling on reservoir storage going forward, and I'd like to know, when will we see the modeling on our end so that we're better? I mean, the messaging isn't just about this year, it's about next year as well, and because we don't know what the flow, what our precipitation will be.
Yeah, we've done the modeling, and Chip, do you know off the top of your head the numbers?
I don't know them off the top of my head. We have pretty clear modeling for Scott, and we'd be glad to bring you the graph for that, maybe at the next meeting.
That would be great.
Rollins is touch and go, especially based on the secondary outage that's coming in the winter. So we can kind of give you some preliminary numbers, but that.
Well, I think it's really important that we have clarity on how this situation is impacting this year and next year, potentially.
Yeah, we have the numbers run. They do change. Some of it's difficult based off of the second outage, but we also run the numbers based on different water year type scenarios. So we can bring back those graphs for you and take a look. Poor Tor updates the numbers just about every week.
About every 15 minutes.
I know.
You know, I wonder too, on the conservation efforts, I've been one of the folks who have voluntarily reduced in the past, and our process is that the year, if you voluntarily reduce in 1 year, you automatically go back to your original purchase allotment unless you proactively say, I want to stay at the low level. And if you stay at that lower level, you cannot go back to the higher level in future years. So I just want to make sure I'm saying that correctly, Chip.
You're partially correct. If you elect to stay at the lower level next year, it just means that the year after that, if you want to go back to where you once were, you can do that as long as there's water availability. If we're in a drought situation or there's limited supply, we're going to keep you at the lower level. It really depends on that.
It would be viewed as a traditional increase in water supply after the original year.
So I would like to request a reevaluation of that policy. I happened to sit with Andy Fecco on the Placer County Farm Tour last week and talked about their approach. And what they do is, if you voluntarily reduce, should a drought occur, you can go back to your original purchase request. And I think that would encourage a lot more people to stay at a reduced level if they didn't have the risk that, okay, so let's say I'm starting with 2 minors inches and I reduce to 1. And I'm happy with that for a number of years, but then a drought occurs and we have to cut back, let's say 20% mandatory. So those folks are disadvantaged because they have adopted a conservation approach. And I think it would be, I think we would encourage more conservation if people knew that I can go back to my original purchase level and then have the drought impact applied to.
Yeah, I think we're talking a little bit different items here. I don't think that's what I think what PCWA is referencing is what we do. The next year you can go back. If you go.
You can go back, but if you stay at a reduced level and you then have a mandatory reduction, your mandatory reduction is on your original purchase.
That's
level.
interesting, because I hadn't thought of it that way. You basically get taxed twice.
Exactly,
yeah.
we do,
But
Yeah, I took the reduction this year,
yes.
and if I might stay there next year to help fill the reservoirs again,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't do it just because I don't want to be locked.
That's right.
That's actually very interesting.
But you wouldn't be locked, so you would be allowed to go back next year.
Only
No,
1
but
year.
if I wanted to do another 20% next year
Yeah.
while the reservoirs fill back up to help the system, I wouldn't do that because the following year I wouldn't be able to go back up.
That's
If
right.
it was a
Well, we would likely, so if we need help filling the reservoirs back up, we would still have the same program in place. So those voluntary folks would still be able to go back up even after the second year. Why don't we look into it? I think it's a little bit more nuanced. I don't.
Yeah, I think it's something we
Yeah.
should address in the drought.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
So Chip, there's a little checkbox. It says, next year, do you want to go back up to your
Right.
regular amount? And if we're not, and if we're in a surplus, you're required to go up. Almost.
We generally put you back, because most folks wanted to go back to the original law.
But if we're in a drought still, then that voluntary conservation figure carries over. I understand.
Yeah, so what we have talked about.
You still retain the right to go back up in a surplus year.
I don't think that's how it's written today.
Yeah.
How it should be written.
Yeah. We're gonna, there's a lot of, we need to look into this, so we'll report back.
Well, actually, it ties into PG&E because it's talking about conservation of water because of a failed system. And we need to talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to talk about it at some point.
Yeah, I agree, but
Public comment, anybody here, workshop, jump in, comments? Any more directors?
Well, I guess I just would like to be very explicit. I think that we need a very comprehensive plan about not just this year, but next year. And that we have clarity on what we can expect in reservoir levels next year and how that affects, under different climate circumstances, water availability for our needs.
Yeah, we ran the numbers, so we'll bring it back.
Thank you.
What happens in multiple dry years?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, Brandon.
So I have a request.
Sure.
Not selling us Spalding for $1.
I told you I'd carry it back to the team for
You want me to give you the $1?
I'll give you 5, right now.
We'll take a
You're outfitting and.
Well, no, I'm just trying to sweeten the pot for him, that's all.
I think you'd want us to fix it all first, though.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a valid point, that.
I didn't
Well,
say.
on my dollar.
The contract would say, I just said I'd pay you 5.
Yeah, that, I don't think that's, gonna happen, but I'll certainly share the sentiment.
We'll fix it.
Okay.
So what helped me to understand the importance of Powerhouse 1 and 2 are the monthly production records for the last 5 years.
You mean the power output, how many
Yep.
KWs?
I wouldn't even know where to find that, but I will ask.
I'm sure it's somewhere.
I would imagine the independent system operator might have something on that,
Can you pull it off the,
ISO.
yeah.
That's not a question I'm prepared to answer, though, but I'll ask and bring it back on the.
I'm not sure we can get it, but we'll take a look at it.
Well, and Rich, what would that inform you? I'm curious.
I want to know how valuable they are as powerhouses versus how valuable they are for water.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that other than to say I'll post a question to the, and see what they come back with.
It's part of my puzzle.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
I'm just not sure,
How's it getting our water, and that's a question.
Right.
And I want to commend Director Christopher Wagon for starting that idea. So, all right. Seeing no more public input, comments. Brandon, thank you.
yeah, thank you for having me. I believe I will see you all on the 24th.
Yes.
And of course, you all have my number if you have any questions in the meantime. Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon. So, we're to 4B, which is the CIP, and we just hang on that.
Yes, President Johansson, we are requesting to pull that item. The staff member that is in charge of that particular item had a family emergency, he's not here today. And I don't feel that I'm sufficient to fill his shoes.
Okay, anybody here was looking to talk to that, or? No, okay, so we're gonna have to move on to the 24th for the 5-year CIP on funds 15 and 55. Part of that included, the water treatment plant at Lake Wildwood, Beth?
Who has said?
No, I just wanted to
It wasn't on the.
revisited some of the figures.
And then if we're meeting the 22nd.
Yeah, I know, it's the 22nd. Yeah, I just looked that up.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm sure Brady, you know yourself.
We'll coordinate with him.
You'll get it.
Jen, I wondered if one of the things that could be added to the presentation is just a slide on the methodology. So how did you determine what projects would be included? You know, just a little bit more on the history than what's included here.
And one on the plumbing I asked for last time we did, how it looks. I don't understand
What are we talking about?
plumbing.
For what?
South, how the water gets to South Yuba around the break. Is there another pipe or a canal or what do we do?
I think we're mixing agenda items.
Oh, okay.
Director Holt's talking about the CIP, but I will note your comment as well.
We want to see what the repair and maintenance is gonna be also once we make these capital improvements.
Right.
That'll come down. That's big word.
Right, I think I have all those comments sorted. We'll take care of that.
Manager's report.
We've been really busy lately.
Really?
Chip is gonna do a real quick water supply update.
All right.
A little positive news in the horizon.
All right. Let's break the camera, Greg, come on. Okay, good morning, everybody. Thought it's been a while, we ought to give you a water supply update. It's a little bit skewed because the numbers look really good. Unfortunately, we don't have access to all of it. But regardless, it is what it is, and it helps to inform us of where we're headed for next year, and refill is a little bit in this conversation as well. We'll go ahead and start off with the typical slides that you all are used to seeing with our Bowman Lake precipitation as of May 1st. This does not include the last storm we had, which was very impressive for that time of year. We are at 63.2 inches of precip, which is 98% of average, just hanging in there. I would expect we're at 100% with that storm we just had, so really good stuff. We got over 2.5 inches up there in precip. Most of it was snow, strangely enough. NID reservoirs, that looks impressive. So we're at 251,845 acre feet, which is 107% of our average, 93% of capacity. The reason it's not completely full, we have Scott's Flat is full, we have Rollins is basically full. But Jackson Meadows and Bowman, we still have not closed all the gates because there's still quite a bit of snow melt to come on in. If we were able to close those gates and capture that today, we would peg this chart. So we're in really good shape for this time of year.
How soon do you close the gates, and are we gonna hold all the water up there?
The goal is always to maximize and close the gates to a point where we fill all the way to the top. It's all a risky behavior as well. So you gotta time it just right. You gotta really rely heavily on your snow survey results and balance all those out. So anyway, the goal is to try to fill them up as full as we can, and we're gonna try to do that.
We have environmental CFS requirements below Bowman?
Yes, Canyon Creek, there are some environmental in-stream flows. Also on the Yuba River, well below Milton, we have some in-stream flows as well. And we're meeting all of those, so. We did do a May 1st snow survey. Pretty good results. We're at 86% of average. Really not as high as some of the results the rest of the state has seen, but regardless, our reservoirs are so full, it really doesn't matter. We're in really good shape. We're not going to be able to capture much more than is already up there. Across the state, the numbers are very positive. As you look, the north end of the state, these are all snow survey results. The top half there is the northern half. It's 119% of average. You can see that in the top right corner there. Basically, the blue line there is where we're at this year. And you can see that last storm is showing in their results, that little blip at the end there. Pretty impressive. For our region, the central region, we're at 96% of average. And then the south is at 79% of average. So really good numbers for the most part. Moving forward, the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook shows it's going to get hot, which you got to anticipate at some point in time it's going to happen. We've been really lucky to this point. Precip, though, is kind of near normal to maybe a little bit wetter. Right now, though, the 10-day forecast doesn't show a whole bunch, just a couple slight chances of rain. The seasonal outlook, this is the next 3 months. They anticipate us leaning above average. So that's to be expected. Hopefully that waits until June 18th. Precip is 50-50, equal chances. The monthly drought outlook for our area looks great. And actually the rest of the United States has improved greatly. California, kind of the same slide. Really hasn't changed any in the last few months. And then, yeah, go ahead.
So on the drought monitor, they measure how much water there, but they do not measure how much gets drafted from wells. And some of these basins can get sucked dry really quick. Why don't they put that factor in?
So I can come back to you with what makes up this drought monitor. It is not just surface water, it's not just groundwater, it is soil moisture, it is ETO, it's a whole bunch of parameters that go in to make this happen. That's why in a lot of times you'll see that it shows we may be in very dry drought conditions, but we have plenty of water. Well, they're measuring a lot of other things. I will come back with those details on exactly what these are measuring. And then this slide here, so interesting one. I can't remember since I've started doing this that I've ever seen this much blue in all of the reservoirs of California. And all of them, essentially, with the exception of San Luis, are well above average. And San Luis
Does it really count?
is modified.
Does it really count?
It does count, but they can fill it, it's basically man-controlled, so it's not natural runoff for the most part. Anyway, reservoirs look amazing. Shasta's well above average, almost up to spill. Trinity peaked out well above average this year, did much better than last year. It's on its way back down. Oroville still spilling, as far as I can tell, so that's impressive. Folsom Lake still on the way up. Still a lot of snowpack up there in the American River watershed, so it's going to continue to fill up. And Bullards is the recipient of a lot of our spill water this year, so they're happy as clams as well. And then last but not least, our treated water users are conserving. I think some of the messaging is getting out there, I think mixed in with a little bit of a wet, cool spring so far. But overall, we have saved about 11% as compared to the last 11 years for this time of year. So doing pretty good there. And I think that's about all I had. I want to step back for a minute and address Director Hull's question on the reservoirs, specifically for Scott's. I paused a minute to give you the numbers because we did not calculate in the most recent storm. We're working on that as we speak. But even before that, we saw numbers around, worst case scenario, around 20,000 acre feet, which, to give you some perspective, during the 2015 drought, Scott's Flat dropped to about 18,000 acre feet. So we're actually projecting it to be a little bit better than even during the drought years, which is good. So given that scenario, we feel fairly comfortable with where we're at. And then Rollins will have to work on that one and get you some better numbers. But it is a moving target. We figured this last round of storms probably bought us about 10 days to 2 weeks of additional water supply. So, yeah, good stuff.
Scotts Flat Reservoir watershed, what is it capable?
Oh, goodness, I'll have to dig that number out for you as well. It is a lot of imports that fill that reservoir and that whole arm, but we'll get you some natural runoff numbers.
We can augment the South Yuba Canal about 4,500 acre feet a month.
Yeah, and it depends on the time of year, it depends on the storms. There's so many variables in that number, but I can get you the averages at the next meeting and we'll fire those off to you. Yeah.
We include these slides in the general manager update, so they're provided monthly. Yeah. And on the website.
I think that's all I had.
And no new news on La Nina?
No new news as of, I have not dug into those recently.
David did a really great article on just in this last week. Really, really good. No, I mean, it was done just like a week or two.
Yeah, but La Nina transfers from El Nino
Oh, right,
to
right.
La Nina around, what, August?
Well, I don't remember, but it,
I thought it was sooner than that.
I thought it was, but check it out. It was really, really good and very informative.
I appreciate the tracking of those. I will say, though, that in our general region, they're not really convinced El Nino versus La Nina is a huge difference for us. We've had such extremes on both sides, even during those types of years. So it definitely has an effect Southern California, where we're at. I think there's some minimal effect, but there's some. So we do watch it, but the results don't always pan out the way you would think. Like El Nino is supposed to be warmer, wetter, La Nina colder, less precip. It doesn't always pan out that way up here. And yet last year was very wet, but also had a decent snowpack.
Yeah, we're right in the middle of the.
Yeah, so theoretically, it was the El Nino year, should have been very wet and very warm, but we had a very amazing snowpack.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
It's warm and 10,000. All right, Board of Directors reports.
So it's flower season at Bodacious Bloom, which, this year I've been inundated with visitors. I do not know how to just say no, and so I've had every day people coming to see the flowers. And my farm is made possible, thank you, NID, raw water system. It would not exist, like many ag operations, without our wonderful Nevada Irrigation District. I also attended the Placer County Ag Tour with Naomi, and they had a wonderful turnout. It was really a great day. We went, and the focus was on ranching and grazing land. We started at Hidden Falls and then went to the Lincoln Farm and Lincoln High School Farm, and then we went to a ranch that has been in existence for somewhere around 100 years. It was wonderful to see. A lot of elected officials on the tour, primarily elected officials, and different government representatives. So that was a really good investment of time. And I also had Josh Hunsinger, the Placer County Ag Advisor, Ag Commissioner, come and do a farm visit too. So I think it was good for him to be able to see a small operation like my own and how it fits into the overall ag scheme in Placer County. That's it.
So you need overalls, boots, gloves, clippers, and people who come have to go to work.
That's right.
Get the real experience.
Yes.
Okay. Clipper.
Go ahead. Well, okay, this will be really quick. I was asked to speak, and I did, at 2 different events, and the primary interest and source of the conversation was just around this PG&E water crisis that we have. People wanted to get into the weeds, if you will, to find out where we are, what is the timing, what is the worst case scenario, what is the best case scenario. So I did do that in the last 2 weeks. I attended 2 different events. That's my report.
Run for the.
Yeah, Kentucky Derby was great. Other than that, I just want to thank Congressman Kiley, Assemblyman Patterson, all of the supervisors in both counties, especially Shantae Landon, my supervisor, and the farm bureaus for really putting pressure. I don't think that pipe shows up months early without the pressure that was applied by both NID and the electeds. So let's not let them off the hook. Let's get the pressure pushing forward for the other repairs as well. I think that even out in Kentucky, everyone was talking about South Sutter water, stuff outside of our district is being impacted about this. So price is a problem for a lot of people that aren't in NID based on these same failures. So it's not over yet.
It is not over. Thank you. Chris?
I attended the Nevada County Farm Bureau meeting last week, and they seem to be very, they don't have any just understanding of what the problem is and what to deal with it. Next week is the Nevada County Farm Tour.
Sold out?
Yes.
Waiting
Yeah.
list?
How long is
Yeah.
the waiting list?
14 people from NID
No,
going?
that's my report.
Oh.
I'm going.
They're also coming to our farm, so.
Yeah.
At Rollins Lake, where there will be some NID people there to talk about it. Rollins Lake, so. Looking forward to it.
14 county people coming. So Farm Bureau, great. Supervisor Sue Hook, like yours, conversation last night, 8:30 about it. They want to know if we have a water emergency declaration. We do on March 27th, so they can follow up with that. We're going to put an extra bus on the tour? No? Okay, well, got a ticket, good. Going to meet with Pamela Grant, Congressman Kiley's rep, here at 1 o'clock. They're really interested, and Trevor's going to follow up. He's following up, you're following up, it's good. This has gotten everybody's attention. Yeah, but it's great. So, kind of all I have, although can't underestimate how much that rain helps. Everything's getting planted and plenty of water in the pond. This pond project is getting legs, getting some movement. And, oh, Justin, you have things to add?
Yeah.
Nothing statewide or?
Well, it's Aqua Week, so it's typically a light week for us that stay here.
Didn't the Superior Court judge dismiss all claims against the unimpaired flows in the San Joaquin?
Yeah, so you're referring to, that was actually, about a month ago, maybe even more than that now. And I can report on this more at a future meeting, but yes, this concerns phase one, which is the San Joaquin tributaries, and the 2018 decision of the State Water Board to adopt an unimpaired flow standard for those tributaries. And there was a host of cases, I don't even know how many dozens of different legal claims, and the judge issued about an 80 or so page decision finding in favor of the Water Board on all grounds. It's surprising to me, really, the degree to which at least one judge in one court is willing to defer to the State Water Board on very serious issues. But there will be appeals. In fact, I think there already are some that have been lodged. So more to come. It's not the end of that litigation, but yes.
I have another thing to add. Yeah. In the news yesterday, I don't know where I read it in the paper, I think, about the recharge in the valley has been substantial. The millions of acre feet of water they're reporting, so that's good news for
Took a couple of years.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And there's only a few places where it will fully recharge on a regular basis. Other places have lost quite a bit of their ability to even have an aquifer. So that's it. We're adjourned.